So yeah, but
Yeah.
like, what's it called? We do have a topic though. Let's dig
Yes.
ourselves out
I'm
of
so
this one.
sorry. My thought of my topic is I run a 1 day baking residency where I invite people into my house, and then we choose something that they've never baked before, but they've always really wanted to bake, and then we bake it together. The sort of like there is, oh no, now I'm going to forget what they're called. There's an artist named Mark Fisher, and they run a printed matter. Ooh, I can't remember what they're called right now, but it's out of Chicago. And he was doing this like 1 day residency where he would invite people to go shopping with him in this Korean market. And then they would eat Korean food afterwards as this like out of, you know, um, when you're out of your element and you sort of like bond over this like non-elemental thing. But basically though, I bake a lot, and food and preparation around food and being in a kitchen in that domestic space fed so much into my making practice. I went to school for ceramics.
Mhm.
That I thought it was a really nice, like, alternative studio visit to have folks bake with me, to like,
Yeah.
whether you're like good at baking or not, it's something I am at least like knowledgeable enough in where like we could figure it out. I've had a couple where we like barely figured it out, but for the most part, we just like spend the day baking together.
The whole day. Okay. So
I
I'm getting
mean,
very is there's not like is it wrong of me to just associate baking with British Bake Off? Am I just like the most basic
uh,
person in the
no,
world?
I love the Great British Bake Off, though it is such a, I think it's such a perfect show in a lot of ways because
Uh-huh.
it's not, there's nothing polished about it, right? Like they'll show drippy cakes and they'll
Yeah.
show like things falling apart, and it is a very fun I it wasn't like an inspiration, but I do remember watching it and being
Oh
like,
no, I
well, if
wasn't saying
that ding
inspiration.
dong can bake a cake, so can I.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it, I hope it's not as messy. I feel like they're a physical mess on that show.
No, what I was saying is that like because I don't have any direct experience with baking myself, although I've had other bakers on the
Never.
show. I mean, I've baked like like brownies like
Mm.
with the like pre-made mix and stuff
The
like that.
eggs and the oil
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
It's not like I've ever used flour in any capacity at such a pure raw form. Like that's like way out of my experience. But what I do, what I guess the reason that I was bringing it up is that like my sense of the vibe, like obviously you're thinking of it and yeah, there's definitely a lot of messiness in the show, but it's also like kind of the most relaxing competition show that exists, right? So I'm guessing I'm getting a that's more what I'm referencing, that soothing vibe of like, oh, these people are gonna fail and it's gonna be okay, and they may cry, but like the stakes are just they didn't get a fucking plate, right?
Yeah. I mean, that
The
is
stakes are
like
bragging rights. They're not even
the
losing out
stakes.
on money.
It's really just worst case scenario. It's not delicious, but it was like fine, like
It's not
the only,
delicious.
I mean, I think too,
That should be an affirmation. Worst case scenario, it's not
it's not
delicious.
delicious.
That might be the title of this
I,
episode.
I mean, I'm a really ugly baker. I think so. My background is in ceramics and like craft in general. And I think that and I like to bake. So I think people think I'm a neat person.
Mhm.
But I make really ugly things. And my focus has always been like, if it tastes good. Um, eh, but I always thought of it as like, studio visits are really overwhelming, and they're really overwhelming for me to be like, this is what I made and this is why I made it. And like, do you
Mhm.
like it? Where like, especially if it's tied to nostalgia, if you like, oh, if your grandma made a pie and y'all used to make like a pie together on Thanksgiving, like, and you just never really had the energy to make a whole pie from scratch, or you were nervous because it has a lot of steps to it. Like, I'm a person, I've made a pie before, or if I haven't made a pie, like, I learned how to make biscottis with somebody. and the first round of them were bad. And so we just made
Yeah.
another batch of
You got to
biscotti,
double bake those, right? Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's like
Okay.
a pain.
Yeah,
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 you got to like bake a cookie, let the cookie cool, cut the cookie, bake the cookie again.
yeah,
It was confusing, and I
yeah.
honestly don't really like biscotti, so it was also one of those like I'm not going to enjoy this biscotti. Um, but
Do you ever
but
dip
there
them in
is
anything? Sorry, go ahead.
we
You
had
had much more
tea.
interesting.
No, 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 no. As we were baking them, we went and got tea. There's a great like tea shop called Soccer Tea here. So we like went and picked out tea. I mean, I think it's also like to spend a whole day with somebody where it's the lowest of stakes. There's nothing really to do except for like make a batch of cookies or I mean we have made bread before, which is a little bit more stressful, but just in terms of timing, but it's really like, I don't know, it's like spend a day together where there's not, the only agenda is like, we'll make this thing and maybe have people over and eat it together.
And you keep referencing it as a studio visit. So are you showing any artwork at all and during this process? Is it just like a way to break the ice? We're gonna do this and then also do a studio visit, or is the process of making it the what you consider the studio visit because you're maybe talking about ideas that are relevant to practice anyway? The second one.
The second one for sure, it's the like just the way in. I think I think when artists get together, you kind of end up talking about big ideas or things that you're interested in, and without like a prepared speech, just a sort of like when I frame the baking residency, which is called Mostly Butter, it's so steeped in nostalgia because that's what my work is so steeped in, is like it is so based in, is like this reimagining of these nostalgic objects. And so, talking about my things that I had baked before is usually like my grandma and I did it, or my mom and I, or my aunt and I did it, so there's like, it just, I think goes back to her. That's my hope, is it's like a nice enough environment where people can just talk, we can sort of just kind of get into it. I also I think people's work, I'm a little bit more interested in people's work as a like from a conceptual place, and then talk about the objects and see their work, more than I am like an object, always necessarily like I see an object and then that's sort of where I start.
No, I mean I'm
So
obviously on board because this is basically
this
what
is
we're
the
doing right
same
now.
similar
We're just
situation.
we're not making cookies, so there's even we're just almost getting in trouble.
I
So
know.
there's a different kind of excitement and danger. I